how should interdisciplinary education and training, in contrast to multidisciplinary education, be developed to ensure that all graduates are well prepared for career pathways in the sustainable circular bioeconomy? This is what we're going to talk about. Essentially, we're going to talk about the fact that the graduates should be well prepared for their future. And as I said already in the pitch, there are 4 people who are responsible for preparing this sub-workshop. Their names are here. I'm not going to mention them again. But it's in general, we'll have an agenda like it said here. First, Elsbeth Spelt will be asked to join, to say something about multi versus interdisciplinarity. She prepared a story about this presentation. Then again, we will have some polls and discussion. And that's where Inga comes in again, because Inga will help us in the organization of the polls and the slides that will come up. You won't have to do very difficult things if it's correct, but you will be asked to join in some polls, and we can see how you think about some important items. We also have some discussion items. Then again, the talk of Douwe Frits Broens. As I mentioned before, he will talk about this specialist versus generalist issue. Again, some polls and discussion, and we will try to conclude this whole thing. And of course, this will be, well, in that sense, that will be the end of the workshop in total. For us.
Maybe I shortly would like to add that it would be great if you could have really the chat open, because I also will provide some links and things like that into the chat, so especially for the polls. And of course, always you can directly address, if you have questions or ideas or whatever, all these questions also during the talks and whenever, directly into the chat, so that we can keep them and discuss them afterwards and pick them up again. So please always really lively use the chat. We don't have something like, I have forgotten all the different formats of whiteboards. We are just going really to talk via the chat and really live to each other. So let's see how this works.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So again, I'll stop sharing my screen. Elsbeth, can I invite you to share your screen afterwards?
Yeah.
I think you'll introduce yourself. So, and I said already something in the first part, so that's not necessary anymore.
A short comment again, while Elsbeth is setting up her talk. When you talk, it would be fantastic if you shortly can let us know your name, your affiliation, and the country you are from, so that we have an idea also about how the distribution and the background of our different participants are, who are going to give us some input. That would be great. Thank you.
I agree. We're not with a big group, so in that sense, it's not that it's nice to know about where people come from. Absolutely. Thank you, Elsbeth.
Do you see my screen? And thanks for in between. I'm not used to Zoom at the moment, but it works. And indeed, if you have questions, I'm Elsbeth Spelt. I'm a teacher at Wageningen University. Usually I teach food quality management and I teach interdisciplinarity. So when Han asked me about, could you explain to our audience what the difference is between disciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, inter and trans, I said, yes, of course, I am able to. If you have questions during this presentation, please raise them. I should go to the Zoom setting to, I don't know how, because I see my presentation now. But I will come back to your questions afterwards. So multi and inter, why? Why do we need to teach our students multi and inter? Why is it necessary in our society? What does it mean? What are the differences? What does it mean for research, our project work and our teamwork? And what do you need to think of if you would like to teach multi and interdisciplinarity? I need to say maybe that I did my PhD on interdisciplinary higher education. I studied multiple cases at Wageningen University. So this presentation is based upon my practical experiences and my PhD research. Why interdisciplinarity? Let's see whether it works.
Yeah.
Is it working?
Well, you are still in the not presenting mode. We still see your PowerPoint, but without being in the presentation mode. Could you go into the presentation mode, please?
I have no clue what to do.
If you click on the right down there in the normal way to go to your presentation mode.
So what you can easily do is, if you go to the lower bar, you see that there is this zoom tool, and besides the zooming tool, you can find this little icon.
Sorry, I cannot follow you yet because I do not have to use the large screen. It's only giving a couple of screens. We do not use Zoom at our university because of the bad rumor in the media.
So what do you see at the moment?
Only your 6 pictures. I do not see my. So I missed the interface. It's completely, it is gone or something.
So in the top, you can choose, you should choose between speaker and at the very top.
Yeah, but I do not have the complete screen anymore. I don't know why.
If you go into the Optionen anzeigen, do you see that?
No, mute, stop video participants, new share, and more. Remote control. So I lost my screen as well. So I will click, but no. Sorry, I'm not involved in this.
So we do it different. Then I will share the screen and show it, and maybe you can just comment or give me a try then.
It just works this way as well.
But maybe someone else is more convenient to. How can I enlarge my screen that I get the complete thing back?
I don't know which mode you have at the moment, therefore I can't really help you.
Yeah, sorry. We should have tried this before because I'm not familiar with Zoom. Sorry.
We see your presentation. Can we proceed?
Yeah, so, and do you see my second slide now?
Yeah, we see it. It's not really filling the screen, but it's okay. I think we get the most important informations.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem.
Why the interdisciplinarity? Yeah, now I have to make my own, otherwise I cannot see. Well, interdisciplinarity, it's for analyzing complex problems so that you do not focus only on one course, but on particular courses from different disciplines. Of course, if you have analyzed and you made an inventory of all kinds of courses, you need to solve it. By solving problems, it's also good to look based upon your analysis from different angles. And if you would like to have successful innovations, we always say you need to have a look to multiple disciplines. And that's what I schematically also present below, that you have different complex problems and you need different lenses, different analytical lenses from each discipline to view the problem differently. Well, if you then take just an example of our dairy company, Friesland Campina, they are switching from the plastic straws to the paper straw. And they made a nice movie to advertise on that. And if you look to that, then you see that there are multiple disciplines involved. For instance, the consumer studies, because the straw should be still convenient, similar to the plastic straw. You need to have a physics because it should be flexible. We all would like to bend it. You need to have microbiology because it should be hygienic. You don't want people become in danger for their human health. So there are hygienic requirements. Of course, you need to think about the economy, the bioeconomy and the environment. Is it biodegradable or not? And of course, logistics, is it firm enough to distribute? So to make an innovation, most of the time you see multiple disciplines involved. And they can start working multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. And what's then the difference? The difference is, which I try to explain here schematically, is that multidisciplinarity is additive. So you focus from disciplinary A and you do B, but there is no connection. It is just you look from A and B and that's it. But if you have interdisciplinarity, you look again from A and B, but you start connecting, you start sharing, you start blending the knowledge or integrating. And that gives you an advance in understanding that you would not know if you would have not blended both viewpoints. Another presentation or other schematic representation to make this clear. On the top, you see multidisciplines, so discipline A and B, just along each other, no interaction, no connection. Then in the middle, you see interdisciplinarity. There is connection. There different insights are blended and you get an advancement in understanding. And on the bottom, you see trans. What's the difference between trans and inter? The difference is that you integrate even non-academic practitioner knowledge. So also the integration is important in transdisciplinary, but you do not only integrate disciplinary knowledge, but also practitioner knowledge. So coming to the difference, what is the difference in, if you have, for instance, teaching, or if you see reports, then you see that the reports are hardly just explaining the different insights listing from the different disciplines, but they do not really blend or juxtapose the different, or compare and contrast the different insights gained. So that is in multidisciplinary processes. And what you see in reports, you see a listing of the gained insights per disciplines, but hardly any connection. And that's really the difference between inter and multi, that you connect. And an example, for instance, if we take, again from the food, because I'm also teaching in the food sciences, suppose there is a listeria outbreak in the food factory and you would like to make an inventory of potential causes. So what could happen? Why does this listeria outbreak happen in our factory? Then a multidisciplinary inventory looks just one by one. They would say, well, there might be causes because the cleaning was not being done correctly, or our equipment was not being done correctly, or it could be the presence of temporary workers because our regular workers are ill due to COVID. Or you could say, well, there was a general culture being present of non-compliance to procedures. And then you just list the different causes. But if you say inter, then you start cross-linking in, you start making a reasoning. And I did just presenting one reasoning. One of the possibilities could be that due to the presence of temporary workers, the compliance to procedures for cleaning was rather low, leading to the ineffective use of the cleaning equipment. And in this reasoning, you see that I try to connect all three causes which were listed in the multidisciplinary example of causes. And you can make, of course, multiple different ways of connecting these three different causes. And that is what you definitely see if people start working from multi to inter, they start connect and making an advancement in understanding. Well, if you start doing a research, now what are the characteristics? Of course, you see the process of answering a question and then solving a complex problem or addressing a topic that is too broad or too complex to be dealt with a single discipline. And you draw upon different disciplinary insights, and then you start integrating these insights to construct a more comprehensive understanding. And this is what you see that in a research project, students, colleagues will do. They start with on the top, the complex problem, then they have a general complex research question, and then usually what you see is that they will divide the research questions in disciplinary sub-research questions. They get the information from the different disciplines, and then you see the black arrows to start drawing, comparing this knowledge in order to integrate, to make knowledge connections and to get an advancement in understanding. So you see an analytical part, majorly focusing on the disciplines, and then you have this scientific, the integrated part. So these are the activities the different team members will do. And of course, if you then work in a team, you need people from different disciplines, but you also need a facilitator or an enabler or a generalist, linking to the presentation of Douwe in a few minutes. So that you need someone who is able to make these connections, or you need an environment that people feel comfortable first to come up with their own disciplinary viewpoint, and then that they will be able to connect, and that somebody is facilitating this process. So therefore, team members need to have, of course, curiosity and willingness to learn from other disciplines, from other team members. They need to be flexible because you do not have the fixed path in your disciplines, that there is a kind of way how to, for instance, analyze protein concentrations. No, interdisciplinary research is most of the time brainstorming different viewpoints, and then you make a compromise or you make a new advanced way of doing. So you need to have a certain flexibility, and in that sense also a high tolerance of ambiguity, because it's most of the time pioneering and you do something outside of your comfort zone. And of course, an open mind to ideas from other disciplines, and not just saying, yeah, we do it always in this way, but being creative and stay open for new pathways and new activities. And that's for the team members. And of course, the enablers, the team members should make sure that everybody has respect for each other's disciplines, that everybody is interested. He needs to set an atmosphere. Of course, to get such an atmosphere, team members should have a good understanding, not necessarily all the depth of every discipline, but at least the umbrella, the overview. And you need to be able to quickly absorb information and see the implications of what team members are telling rapidly, to make sure that on the one hand, there is enough room for the disciplinary insights and the brainstorm and the connection. But on the other hand, you also need to continue with the project. Otherwise, you're stuck to brainstorming and sharing each other's viewpoint. Well, then if you would like to teach this in interdisciplinary education, then of course you always need, I got many times in my PhD, well, do we need specialists or do we need generalists? That is something the program committee should, or the teachers involved in the program, together with the job market, should be discussed. And once in case you say, well, we would like to have a generalist with a good interdisciplinary competence, then you could centralize the learning outcome of interdisciplinary thinking. And you could say, well, we really would like to have a kind of learning path in our curriculum that helps students to integrate, to become acquainted with the skill of interdisciplinary knowledge integration and to produce certain cognitive advancement. If you say, well, but we also need specialists and our program is more dedicated to develop specialists, then still it would be necessary that these students or these colleagues has a certain awareness of the presence of interdisciplinarity, because they will work, as I just schematically presented with the team, they will probably work in different teams with different specialists together. And then we would say centralize the multidisciplinary thinking outcome, and that they at least are able to understand somebody else's discipline, so jargon, different way of epistemology and ontology, different ways of methods, and that they will be able to switch to the different disciplines. And then the generalist, that will help the generalist to make connections in such a teamwork. Well, how should the pedagogy look like? Of course, you should explain the what and the how. So what is expected in this course? What kind of learning outcome? Is it interdisciplinarity or is it multidisciplinarity? And which kind of trajectory students or adults will get or will be engaged in? You need to have yourself multiple examples of multi and inter, so that students get a better, it's quite abstract to them. Start with a complex problem or an innovation problem. Have a kind of overarching framework representing the disciplines which will be integrated in this program or in this course. Have, of course, a reflection moment to change on purpose perspectives. Keep an eye on the interdisciplinary assessment, because if you do not have an interdisciplinary assessment, why should students do that then? They will not be graded. Be capable yourself as a teacher and make sure that the course or the training or the program is embedded in a university or in an environment that fosters interdisciplinarity, as it takes more time for teachers and for the participants in your course. Just a nutshell how we do that at our university. We have multiple courses aiming to develop interdisciplinary thinking. For instance, in the Master Food Quality Management, these graduates will work in QA, engineering, R&D. So they have to work as a kind of spider in the web in their job. And our first course, I just finalized this course with a teacher team. from different disciplines, and we start students thinking on the multidisciplinary thinking. The central question is how to satisfy consumers with high quality food. What are food companies doing? And they do multiple activities from different disciplinary viewpoints. And we would like that students at least become aware of these and that they can list the different things, activities, actions, measures companies are taken from the different angles. And we use our own overarching umbrella, what we use in this course. As I said, that is one of the characteristics that's important if you start working on an interdisciplinary or a multidisciplinary trajectory. Then our overarching framework is the techno-managerial approach, in which you combine disciplines from the technology. It could be microbiology, it could be physics, it could be plant sciences, and we combine or integrate that with disciplines from the management sciences, and that could be business economics, now criminology for food fraud, for instance, but of course also law if you would like to produce your products or sell your products all over the world. Different countries, different continents has different types of law. So the label should be in compliance with the law requirements for that particular country. That's in a nutshell the differences between inter and multi. What does it mean? And what we are doing in our pedagogy at Wageningen University. And there are some references if you would like to further read. And if you have questions, please raise them.
Thank you very much, Elspeth. I think it was a very clear story about your experiences in food quality in particular. But I think there are lots of aspects that are also important for the bioeconomy in general. I think there are not even lots of, but even more than that. So in that sense, we are in the same kind of field, I think. So I would like to invite everybody, of course, to be part of the discussion. And I see lots of reactions already in the chat. So thank you very much for being so active in the chat already. But before going to the chat now, I would like to go back to my presentation. Elspeth, if you can close yours.
Yes, of course. That's possible. Yeah, now I'm back.
Yay!
Oh,
you're back.
Now I get the full screen again. So that is something that Zoom is doing.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much. It was okay, so we could follow it very well. And,
yeah, I thought I'd just continue. I teach many times in a week, so I thought I would like to tell you and share my experiences. Yeah. And of course, I would like to interact with. So I'm reading now the chat.
Yeah, and it was very clear. You were very lively in your story, so I think that was very clear to everybody. Thank you very much. So I'll go on in the agenda that we had before, and the next slide. Now it should work, of course. That's the next thing. Oh, now maybe it goes twice because I already pressed it twice. But this is the first poll question that we would like to raise. Hearing the story of Elspeth and knowing the definition of multi and interdisciplinarity. Also, Elspeth gave some ideas about the transdisciplinarity, but we want to focus for this sub-workshop on the inter and multi, because that's, I think, already a challenge enough. Is interdisciplinarity relevant in your daily work? I mean, most of you may also be students, so maybe it's not too easy for everybody. But maybe you can think about what you think is important in the daily work of people working in the bioeconomy, if you think it's a difficult question to ask from your own work. So is it very relevant to have this in your daily work until very irrelevant? And then again, Inga will start sharing her screen again. I will stop this one, and we will see the poll question coming up, and you can answer it.
I have also put the link into the chat, and you can directly click on the link and find the poll open.
So if you would go there, if you go via the chat to the poll question itself, then Inga will open her screen, and we can see what your answers are to this question.
And now I will open the results, which are still incoming. And this is what you see. And what I find really interesting is that of course, we have expected that for most of us, it is very relevant, but it's interesting to see that even some type here, well, it's needed, but it's not that relevant. And of course, nobody, of course, what means of course, but nobody said it's irrelevant, showing really that there is this really high need of inter and multidisciplinary thinking. And what I really think is also interesting, if I have remind what was written in the chat is, I think it was a contribution by Merlet, the willingness of many people, even if they work in such an interdisciplinary environment, to really do interdisciplinary teaching or be really interdisciplinary and present the data they have really achieved in an interdisciplinary way, very often is not that high. And I think this is really a problem. And in that sense, I would stop screen sharing here at the moment. And I think there is directly following another, isn't there following another poll, Han?
Yes, I will start sharing my screen again.
So maybe you don't have to, because the people can see the question if they, if I continue now with the poll. So you should see, if you go back to the poll link, now the next question. And this is a little bit different, as it is asking, do you experience more multi or more interdisciplinarity in your daily work life? So how is it? Do the people usually really explain more from their point of view of the discipline, or do they really try already to really give an interdisciplinary way, so that they really already try to integrate your knowledge and to explain it in a way that it's really understandable also for you?
I don't see the poll question myself in the chat, Inga, at the moment. I don't know whether others see it.
You just click again on the chat link.
Yeah.
And then you should see the second question. So many people answered already, so it seems to work.
Okay.
Just to tell you, we were asked to let open the chat before there are more questions on that.
And this is what the result is. And this is what I really think it's still ongoing, so that you see the live result. That it's really interesting that what the people experience indeed is very often multidisciplinarity. And I really would agree to that it's really still a point that I have the impression of, that really very often the people describe their results, even in a team that is set of different disciplines, but they are really not taking care to describe it in a way that other disciplines can really understand it. And I really think this is an important problem. And even if we see here people being really interested in bioeconomy and knowing all the backgrounds, that still we say, well, in most cases we experience multidisciplinarity, is really a very interesting result, I would say.
Can we invite somebody to say something about this? If somebody would like somebody, because we could say, for example, if you would like to say something, please put an exclamation mark in the chat. That could even be easier. Then I can ask somebody to say something. And of course, you can also use the chat to ask questions, but there are also already lots of questions in the chat, so we have to look at it afterwards. I think there's some interesting discussion going on over there. But is there somebody at this moment who wants to say something about the first two questions that have been risen by us? I could say something, Oliver. Oliver, if you would open your microphone.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, my name is Oliver, Bioeconomy PhD student at Forschungszentrum Jülich. And I think I like this approach of bioeconomy, going back a bit to interdisciplinarity, because I often have the feeling that real world problems, I call them, are often hitting different disciplines, and disciplines by itself are being created is a human concept, maybe created in the 18th or 19th centuries by a lot of universities and so on, and having this interdisciplinary thinking back into the world offers really new approaches to approach problems and challenges of our time. Yeah.
Okay, well, clear. I think it's good to see this. The different disciplines are really present in your opinion as well, and I think that's something that is very in line with what Elsbeth was saying. I have two exclamation marks: Douwe Frits and Merlet. Douwe Frits, you first, maybe.
That's okay. So my practice has to do with accommodating questions from companies which are actually by definition multidisciplinary. Often they come with a disciplinary question, but the solution lies within another discipline. Somehow I find it very natural to work working in an interdisciplinary environment. You always end up in multidisciplinary discussions, but yet there are some boundaries, as I see, between different clusters of disciplines, like, for instance, business or economic researchers or students. They feel themselves unwilling or unable to attack technical language or questions, so they keep a distance. So there are some boundaries in the multidisciplinary landscape, as you could say.
Okay, I think that's clear. Yeah. In that sense, it's difficult for people really to connect to others when they feel like hesitant to say something about the other field. Absolutely. Merlet, you also had a question mark.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to mention that I think everybody of us is working in silos, and this silo is really something what is very comfortable to work in, and so it's very uncomfortable to go beyond that silo and to try to get some like a bird's perspective on others. It is necessary to really hard work on that, to try to get persons out of this silo. And this is what here Joseph mentioned also with point discussions. I think it's only possible to with networking, with discussions, with everyday discussions. But the other point is, like you mentioned it, just with boundaries. I think that it's really that why should some persons talk about, why should they go beyond that silo? I think sometimes they can't really interconnect, and very often a person, for example, with no technical skills, he or she has to admit that she has not the knowledge on that. And I have very often the feeling that it's very hard to say, oh, I don't understand you. It's everybody of us always wants to say, I'm in my silo and know what is here, but not to admit that the knowledge is missing, to tell the other person, oh, I don't understand you. Please, can you make clear what you are saying? The basic is missing.
It makes you vulnerable, and that's difficult for people. Absolutely, yeah.
But I think that was already addressed by Elsbeth, and I really had it also as a comment on my writings here. It's also a question of respect. Yeah, so that really setting together an interdisciplinary team and a multidisciplinary team, it is very important that you respect the other disciplines and that you respect that they really might not know about what you think is a total basic. Yeah, so that you have this feeling again of asking stupid questions, and if you don't create an environment of there are no stupid questions, yeah, each question is valid, that is really very important. And I think this is something that you should really address very, very early in all these different steps, and really how to create such an environment really of being nice, yeah, and really accepting if people are not understanding what you are talking about.
Yeah. I would like to invite last for this moment Joseph to say something about BOCU and the good experience that Joseph that you mentioned in the chat, and then again I would like to go on with the talk of Douwe Frits, as we already have 10 past 20 to 10.
There's one more poll question.
Yeah. Oh, there's one poll question as well. I thought it was a discussion question, but still. Yeah. Okay. Joseph.
Okay, thank you. So I don't have a question, but just a comment. So to briefly say how we are approaching this topic at BOCU. So in all our curricula, so of course there is a lot of multidisciplinarity, in particular at the beginning of the curricula, but in principle as a guiding principle of our curricula. We have the so-called three-pillar system, where we have the three pillars: natural sciences, technical sciences, and economics and social sciences. And so in all our curricula, there are minimum requirements for all these three pillars. So in bachelor programs, we have a minimum requirement of 25% of each of these three pillars. And in the master's program, we have 15% as a minimum requirement for all of these pillars. So this should enable us to first to teach solid basis in the different disciplines needed for our curricula. For example, the agriculture sciences, forestry, or biotechnology, or food technology, and so on the environmental sciences. And we consider it is very important that the students have a solid knowledge in their disciplines, but then to be able to integrate this knowledge using concrete problems, dealing with concrete problems. So this is briefly spoken our approach, how we are dealing with it. So from coming to multidisciplinarity to interdisciplinarity, but also at the same time, also cooperating with the outside world in doing transdisciplinarity.
Okay, so you kind of have an experience that is in line with what Elsbeth was saying, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Where you also have the problems in which you put on the integration. I think that's a good example. Thank you. Then again, I will share my screen again.
And I would like to read or comment shortly on
you can read as well. You can read it as well. Okay.
The comment of Oliver. That Oliver was suggesting in response to Merlit's and Elsbeth's comments, maybe it is really a good way of starting really writing this one-way direction things, in the sense of really writing Wikipedia article or really doing more tweets or whatever that really are publicly available, and that he says it's a way of one-way communication, of course, because you don't get direct feedback, but you reach really a huge community. And I think this is also very important for all of us, that we somehow increase really this visibility also.
Yeah.
What I would do now, and this is directly dealing with that. So as we said, we are working multi and interdisciplinary. Please go to the next question of the poll. You should see now.
And then again, you can share your screen again, Inga, to see what people are saying about this. I think Oliver means poll. Let's see, I had courses during my studies. Oh, well, that's third of our group. And I think at this moment, 9 votes. So third is 3 votes for that you did have courses on it. And that's already quite a lot, I would say, because in the past, it was difficult for educators to really work in an interdisciplinary way. And I learned it by doing is the winner of this poll, I think. So in that sense, it doesn't even fit on my screen because the pictures are before it, before the number that comes out of it.
You can shift the
yeah. I can put it somewhere else. 55.6, absolutely. Yeah.
But what I find really interesting on that result is that, as we have now in our audience a mixture of people really with respect to age and how long they are already on the job, I think it's really interesting to see that none of us was clicking at, I had a course during my working life. So none of us somehow really seemed to be active in that sense, having really a course in third tertiary education, getting somehow a grip on it and how can I learn it. And I really think this is very important, because if you say I learn by doing, do you get enough reflection and feedback whether you are really talking in an interdisciplinary way? Maybe you think you talk interdisciplinary, but the perception is completely different on the other side, and people still think you think completely in your discipline, and you do not explain it in a way that people can understand. And in that sense, I really think that it is really important also that also on tertiary education level, people really are willing to really get some feedback about whether they talk interdisciplinary or not.
Yeah, and to say something about the remark that Joseph just made, it does reflect maybe the age differences, but let's say that we might be a little bit older than the students. Mostly, still, we have a young mindset because we are thinking in an interdisciplinary way. Let's put it that way. So I would like now to invite Douwe Frits to do his talk and tell us something about specialists versus generalists.
Yes, please. How much time do I have?
You have now, well, say between 5 and 10 minutes.
But
okay.
Well, how long do you need?
We are not limited, really, Han.
No, we could go on, but it's a question whether people do have the time. But we could go on a little bit after 10 o'clock if people have the time still.
No, actually, I prepared a very short presentation, and I invite everyone to discuss and interrupt if necessary. Please, Inga, how should we do it? I present or you?
You can.
I will. Okay, I'll try. There it is. Okay. Do you see the full screen mode now? Wonderful.
Yes, we do.
Well, just a short introduction. I'm a colleague of Han at the Center of Expertise Bio-Based Economy. I'm more of an expert by experience, not by discipline. I have a background in operational research, which is a discipline of itself, founded somewhere in the Second World War by being interdisciplinary. So actually, I was taught to be interdisciplinary, and my PhD, all my memories come back. My PhD was on somehow connecting a commercial department and a technical department in a company who did not communicate. We tried to solve it with mathematical models. I will present to you today two market consultations on how to educate the new generation who is to shape the bio-based economy. One of it is, well, I just jump into them. Both of them are Dutch-Belgian focused. The most recent result is but beforehand, I should say that both surveys do give some evidence on the question: should we raise our students multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary or anything? It's a bit more practical. We didn't ask companies should they be interdisciplinary. So there is evidence, but it's not, say, the final word on the question we are discussing today, but it gives some material. So the first survey was, we had 63 respondents, quite a lot actually for this kind of research, with some bias towards chemistry. But you see that it was quite dispersed among different kind of companies. Together they had 30,000 employees. They expected some vacancies the next 5 years to be some 5,000. So they expected to hire some 5,000 new students. And since the average share of returns on bio-based applications was about a quarter, raising every year, we projected that would hire some 1,100 students on bio-based topics. And somehow we found that the companies or the respondents had a focus on supply-driven innovation. You could say a technological push, you might say. And especially with this in mind, you could say that they, I don't see my own words because your faces are in between. So well-educated personnel is considered to be key for their own future. Beforehand, a few definitions to understand the responses. We distinguished between technical competencies, which included both knowledge and competencies, valorization competencies, which included both knowledge and competencies, encompassing, for instance, economic, societal, informational competencies and knowledge. And the third category was, you might say, attitude. It was called transversal competencies, like communication, work ethos, entrepreneurial skills, relational, can you listen, and so on. The conclusions as to the future bio-based professional that these companies would like to see is that all of these three competency categories, the technical, say the business, and the relational, are about equally important. You might turn it around and say none of them can be left out. Within these technical competencies, there was a focus on biomass production. So even if you are like a product designer, you should know about the way biomass is produced. But also you should have a knowledge of different types of process technology and, for instance, the application of biopolymers. We might say a bias of the sample here, which is not very much representative, perhaps, but still it contains a lot of foreseen vacancies. Then among the economic, the valorization competencies, there is a focus on business economics, sustainability knowledge, and systems thinking. Say especially that you are able to envisage the stakes of all the value chain players. So systems thinking along the value chain. And on the attitude part, people should be entrepreneurial. You could say they should be able to cross these boundaries and willing to cross these boundaries from a feeling of urgency to really establish things and to work on breakthroughs. So, well, you might say breakthrough, entrepreneurial, sense of urgency. This should be part of their attitude. There were some recommendations as to the current curricula. So, for instance, for the current technical education, and we're talking, you should keep in mind on all levels, like middle professional, higher professional, and scientific education. The technical education should should teach at least combinations of skills, and it was mentioned in the context of the value chain. So both upstream and downstream technological questions. On the business education, the skills of the business students should be extended towards, again, systems thinking, sustainability, which is not natural currently, apparently, and innovation skills. Say how to calculate business cases for innovative solutions. And for all of the students, they should develop their communication and relational skills and their feeling of social responsibility, urgency. So there was a high focus on project-based education, but since this is already quite established. There was a recommendation to extend it towards entrepreneurial education, so focusing projects in cases to real new questions which should be solved. And another thing is that all students should have a focus on sustainability. Actually, in our school, both are now implemented. Are there any questions on this survey? I don't see the chat, so please break in, please.
No, there are no chat remarks at this moment,
Okay.
As far as I see it.
Okay.
But I would say let's first do the whole talk now,
Okay.
because I think else it will not maybe be possible in the time.
Okay, no problem. I'll skip to the second survey then. The second survey was a bit more on the question of interdisciplinarity, but it was a little bit restricted to the green agricultural professional education as we have in the Netherlands, a special column of both universities of applied sciences, middle education, all specializing in agriculture. We distinguish the branches like greenhouse, livestock farming, food technology, pharma, and we had also had a few discussions on chemistry and government. It was not done by a broad survey, but with in-depth interviews with branch representatives, and we had some 4 panel discussions. So people were able to react to each other. Here we didn't make the distinction between, say, the how was it called in the other study, the technical competencies and the valorization competencies. We made a different distinction between types of knowledge, types of competencies, and attitudes, which are at hand. Well, I immediately jumped to the conclusions of the study. It's not very recent, but it may still be valid. The conclusion overall was there is no need for bio-based specialists, rather for specialists in their own profession who are able to cooperate with other specialists. So somehow the conclusion was that interdisciplinarity in itself is not a specialization. You might say if this means that there is no need for bio-based generalists, well, it's all a matter of words, but I hope you understand what I mean. On the knowledge part, again, the supply chain was stressed. The students needed to have a broadened view over the supply chain and not only focus on, say, their own farming or food technology part of the chain. On the economic part, it means that people also should have a view on business to business logistics, for instance, beside business economics. Competencies and attitude were addressed quite strongly here. They are essential for interdisciplinarity, and 3 competencies came out, which is called integration.
Is somebody disturbing the line now?
You need to mute.
Somebody needs to unmute, maybe. I don't know who it is.
Precision farming would intensify agriculture forestry and help to reduce the environmental burden of the bioeconomy.
This is strange. Though, Fritz, you were talking, but now somebody took over.
Yeah, I hear.
Increase efficiency.
Is it very disturbing? Can you still hear me?
We can still hear you, but I think somebody else, another meeting is going on now at the same moment, using the same line.
Okay. I'll try to talk over it then. I'm almost finished. Say the competencies and attitude. First of all, cooperation skills. Then it says creativity. So again, focus on solving problems and feeling an urgency to solve these problems. And another competency which came out was switching ability. So switching among different perspectives, among different disciplines, among different locations in the supply chain. And okay, we're back together again, I hope. I hear nothing again. It makes me insecure. Are you still there, Han?
No, it's fine. We all
okay.
know ourselves because we did.
It's one of the other sub-workshops.
Oh, apparently. So it was recommended to invest in situational learning, which is another interpretation of project-based or entrepreneurial teaching. And oh yeah, here. This is my last sheet, but I have a few other conclusions, which is especially making the step towards this interdisciplinarity. We made a distinction between what should we do as green schools.
No, Fritz, I fear I cannot really follow you anymore because it is so disturbing that somebody is talking in the background.
Okay. I stopped sharing.
I really have no clue where it is coming. Han, can you close your microphone shortly? So it's coming from Han. I don't know why, but it seems to come from Han, really. So
no, it's this is another workshop. It's the workshop of BREAKOUT, which is in the same line at this moment as ours.
Yeah,
so
somehow it goes through your line, Han.
If your microphone, Han, it is gone.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Only linked to your microphone somehow.
Thank you, Han.
Okay, but for the sake of time, what I would say, and Fritz, you might correct me, is it really more or less the outcome, at least for the later poll or the second poll, that more or less with the conclusion that interdisciplinarity is not a discipline in itself, that what the industry is seeking for or looking for is more or less indeed more specialists and really that they say they should have some general skills, but still what we need are specialists. Would you say that is one of the central outcomes?
No, they should have a real education. That's actually what a company is.
A real education, okay.
So they should really be professionals in the profession, but as a professional, being able to relate and to switch to other professions in their communication.
And in that sense, it fits perfectly my next question in the poll. Could you go just one more to the poll and answer the poll question, please? And then I will share the screen.
The others, I think, stopped the sub-workshop in the meantime. It is past 10, so if somebody really needs to go out, of course, it's a pity. But I would like to do the poll question still, and maybe and wrap up the session after that, because well, we can't make it too long.
Yeah.
So then again, in principle, do we need specialists with generalistic knowledge for developing? Yes, we do. I think that's we need both. That's even that's also, of course, an important one. I think only one of us said we need generalists for fostering the sustainable. This is the sustainable circular bioeconomy, where we also talk about the circular sustainable bioeconomy. I think that's clear. We do need more specialists with general knowledge. And I think we have also had another poll question, Inga.
Yes. The last one is now on floor, which is quite interesting.
Do you
think you are a generalist or a specialist?
What are you yourself? And we are with As far as I see, 13 people still. Is that true? 12 people. And we are with, most of us are generalists. That was what I was.
So I think it's really interesting to see that the meaning was, well, we need more specialists that also should have a general point of view. But if you click on then what are you, that most of us think we are generalists. So that is really an interesting outcome, I would say here.
You could say there's enough of us.
Yeah, maybe that's a conclusion.
So maybe to wrap up, I think that's the thing to do now. It's a pity that the discussion can't go deeper, but still it's good to have this knowledge and these insights in multi and disciplinarity in the specialists and the generalists. So I hope that gave you something like an idea on how education should prepare the future professionals, linked to this concept of multi and interdisciplinarity. Some issues that I took up from the chat, maybe to mention them, because I think it's good that you were also active in the chat. What was being said was be vulnerable. I mean, that's what I think Mellet said also in her story. Dare to say that you don't know something. That's an important one in this whole subject, because then again, you make the connection, I think, to others as well. Make the step towards transdisciplinarity. Some people talked about transdisciplinarity in the chat. And also there was a link, thank you very much, for some more information, to get some more information about transdisciplinarity, because the connection to companies is very important as well. I think that's something that brings transdisciplinarity in. Leadership was mentioned in the chat. I think that Douwe Frits also said something about it, because the transversal competences are really connected to this leadership part as well. You have to also give students the chance to make the connection and to bring to be a leader from your own perspective and to really open your mind to others. I think that's something which is very important within the leadership competences. And I think, and what I also would like to add is, and we said it already, please communicate about this and use all the social media. I think that's what Oliver said in the chat. I don't know for sure, but I think he mentioned it. There's still a long way to go for us, and connecting to the thought that we are a little bit older than maybe the median in society. We also have to use these new communication ways. So please do. Okay, I hope you got some insights, as I said before, how to shape the education for this new future professionals. And thank you very much, Douwe Frits and Elsbeth, to share your thoughts in the talks, to give us some insights from your perspectives. Thank you, Inga, to prepare this whole workshop together with me. We had a very interesting end now with the other sub-workshop at the same time. But then again, if the ones that are able to listen to two workshops, they even got two inputs.
May I conclude with a remark? Actually, I would like to make as a conclusion. I think that interdisciplinarity also is served by cooperating between schools, not only between the different disciplines within the schools.
Yeah.
So I think we're all open to cooperation, and please contact afterwards.
And then again, that's the invitation again to connect to the European Community of Practice Bioeconomy Education, because that's where we really want to make this connection. So thank you very much for this remark, Douwe Frits. So that's again an invitation. Please contact us. We will take care. I think, Inga, maybe you can say something about it, that we will wrap up this session and make it available for others. And also maybe we can take care that the chat, for what's in the chat, comes up to all of us. Yeah.
And also I would like to, because you can find now in the chat the two email addresses of Han and me. That means whenever you have additional comments, or when you would like to share some comments or thoughts that you were not able in this short time to tell us, please feel free to send us an email, and we will definitely try to incorporate also this comments then in our general results, because what Iris said already, and I can say it here again, our planning is really to come up here really with a publication out of it and recommendation publication with respect to what is needed, and to wrap up all the results of the different workshops. And when you have additional comments or thoughts or really ideas in direction to what should be changed, please send it to us, and we will also put it into our wrap up in general.
Okay, so thank you very much, and hope to see you somewhere again, maybe live again, because this is not the way to do it in the future, I hope. And we can meet again live in a live situation.
Thanks a lot for all the participants, and I definitely would like to see you once again. So bye, and thanks for sharing your thoughts with us.